I turned 82 this year, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that life rarely follows the neat little plan we imagine when we're young. My name is Frank Wilcox. I grew up in a small Midwestern town back when neighbors looked after one another and kids played ball in every dusty backyard. When I was younger, I believed that independence was my birthright. I'd grow old in my own home, puttering around my garage and sipping sweet tea on the porch with my wife. But as the years wore on, and especially after my dear Margaret passed, the reality of living alone became more challenging. Eventually, I moved into a nursing home, a decision I once thought I would never make. I'm here to share with you some surprising truths about this new chapter of life. Truths I wish I had understood before signing the admission papers. There are good sides, like having help nearby when you need it and meeting fellow residents who feel more like family than strangers. But there are also regrets. Real, deep-seated regrets I'd never anticipated. If you're contemplating a move to a nursing home for yourself or a loved one, or if you're simply curious, listen closely. Today, I'll walk you through 6 of my biggest regrets tied to this experience. 6 revelations that took me from feeling independent to feeling pangs of remorse. Think of these as wake-up calls from someone who's been there. By the end, you'll also see why I still believe there's hope and choice in every stage of life. So buckle up. We're diving into the hidden realities of nursing home living right here in the United States. And by the way, I'd love for you to join this conversation. If something hits close to home, drop a comment with the number that corresponds to the regret. For example, when we talk about regret 2, post a 2 in the comments. Let's support each other and learn from one another. Don't forget to hit that like button if this resonates and subscribe for more honest conversations about aging, independence, and everything in between. As an old friend of mine used to say, growing old is not for the faint of heart, it's for the brave. Regret. 1. Underestimating the power of loneliness. When I first considered moving into a nursing home, I thought, hey, at least I'll be surrounded by people my own age. There will be activities, group dinners, maybe a chance to make new friends. I pictured a lively place filled with chatter, card games, and strolling in the garden. The brochures certainly sold that picture. So I was confident that I'd never feel alone again. After all, how lonely can you be with so many residents and staff always around? Problem. The truth is, loneliness can strike anywhere. Even in a crowded nursing home, you can still feel profoundly isolated. Some days I miss the familiarity of my old home, my favorite armchair by the window, the photographs on the walls, and the sound of my neighbor's dog barking in the distance. Here, every room looks more or less the same. There are schedules to follow, meal times to meet, and the interactions often feel routine. You see staff bustling in and out, but rarely do they sit down to talk about your grandchildren or your old war stories. Consequence. This loneliness, I soon discovered, goes deeper than just the absence of company. It's the sense that no one truly knows you. You might be lonely even when you're in a group of fellow residents playing bingo. Everyone's a bit guarded, each person coping with their own losses, mobility issues, memory lapses, or the heartbreak of family too busy to visit. My dear friend Alice down the hall hasn't had a visitor in months. She often tells me how she regrets not insisting her children stay closer. And hearing her story only intensifies my own fear that as the months stretch on, visits from loved ones may dwindle, making me feel more forgotten with each passing day. Warning: if you're thinking about a nursing home, either for yourself or someone you love, don't be fooled by the assumption that being around people automatically cures loneliness. Sometimes it's the deep connections that matter, not merely the presence of people. Ask yourself, will I still be visited regularly by family or friends? Will I be able to maintain my sense of self, my hobbies, my personal space? If there's any doubt, take a moment to evaluate if this is truly the right move or if there's a middle ground, like in-home caregiving or a more community-oriented setting. So I'd like to know, does this regret one resonate with you? If so, comment with the number 1. Don't forget to hit like if you feel this discussion matters and subscribe for more insights. Sometimes all it takes is one small gesture, like sharing your own story, to help another person realize they're not alone. A day without a friend, an older neighbor of mine once said, is like a pot without a single drop of honey left. Trust me, you don't want that pot to run dry. Let's move on to the second regret, where I'll share how independence itself can slip right through your fingers before you even notice. Regret 2. Losing the freedom of personal choice. If you asked me 10 years ago what freedom meant, I'd have said hopping into my pickup truck on a sunny afternoon and cruising down the highway with no destination in mind. I'd have said deciding on a whim to have pancakes for dinner instead of the usual Sunday roast. But as you age, freedoms shrink bit by bit. In a nursing home, I discovered that sense of free will dwindles faster than you might imagine. Problem: it might start small, like having to eat your meals at specific times rather than when you're actually hungry, or staff might decide the activities for the day so you can't simply take a walk when you feel like it. I used to pride myself on being able to drive, to get up at 5 a.m. if I wanted to watch the sunrise or to sleep in if I felt a bit tired. Now the nurse knocks at 7:30 a.m. ready to help me dress and serve me breakfast according to the facility's set schedule. It feels like the walls start closing in because bit by bit you yield your autonomy to the institution's routine. Consequence: over time, this lack of personal choice seeps into your self-esteem. You start feeling like a child again, asking permission for the simplest things. For some residents, it's humiliating. Friends of mine who were once feisty and independent are now resigned to following orders. One of them, Mr. Clark, complains about not being allowed to keep his beloved cat in his room. That cat was his closest companion after his wife died, but the facility's policies say no personal pets unless they fit certain criteria. Watching him lose that cherished friend broke my heart. And you know what happens when you lose these everyday freedoms? You stop feeling like you're in charge of your own life. Warning: before you commit to a nursing home, find out how flexible their schedules are. Can you decorate your room as you wish? Can you come and go within reason if you're mobile? Do you get a say in what you eat, or do you have to conform to a standard menu? Think about these details because they become huge quality of life factors once you're living there. So, if you're hearing this and thinking, yes, losing independence is exactly what I'm worried about, drop a 2 in the comments. And remember, click that subscribe button if you want to hear more candid reflections on aging. There's a lot they don't tell you until you're living it yourself. Let's keep this conversation going, folks. We're not done yet. Up next, I'll share a regret that hits me in the gut even now. The heartache of feeling like a burden. Regret 3. Feeling like a burden to family and friends. One of the hardest parts about growing old is realizing that your needs can become too heavy for your loved ones to carry. My daughter Laura works full-time and has 2 teenagers. I knew she worried about me, about my medications, my housekeeping, and whether I was safe in my old home. So when it got to the point that I couldn't manage everyday tasks, I told myself that moving into a nursing home was an act of love. I didn't want to burden my family, but I never imagined how the feeling of burden would follow me here too. Problem: even in a nursing home, you might still sense that your care is someone else's responsibility, a big one at that. Whether it's your monthly expenses, the phone calls you expect, or the visits you hope for, you feel as though everything you need is an ask. It's as if you're an item on someone's to-do list. Visit Dad at 3 p.m. if I have time. When your children are juggling jobs, kids, and their own health, you worry you're overstepping if you ask for too many visits or phone calls. You know everyone loves you, but you also sense the strain. Consequence: this sense of being a burden can morph into guilt. Guilt for existing in a space where you're partially dependent on staff, partially dependent on family finances, and partially relying on friends who might help with errands. Some of my neighbors told me they stopped asking their families to visit because they felt they were annoying them. And the unfortunate part is that guilt can lead to isolation. It becomes a vicious cycle. You don't reach out because you don't want to be a bother, which only intensifies your loneliness. Warning: If you're debating a move to a nursing home for yourself or a loved one, make sure you've had open, transparent conversations about how support, financial or emotional, will be managed. Feeling like a burden is partly psychological, but it can be alleviated by setting realistic expectations. Ask your family, how often can you visit? What can you realistically do for me? And be honest about how you'll feel if those visits don't happen as often as you hope. If regret 3 is striking a chord, please type 3 in the comments. It's okay to admit these feelings, we've all had them. And if you're finding value in this discussion, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget, subscribing ensures you won't miss any future videos where we delve deeper into topics like this. Now, let's continue our journey. Next up is something that might sound mundane but is surprisingly painful: the challenge of losing touch with the world beyond these walls. Regret 4. Disconnecting from life outside the nursing home. I remember Sunday drives through the countryside with my wife. We'd marvel at the changing seasons, leaves blazing in autumn, new blossoms in spring. We'd go to the farmer's market, chat with the local vendors, sometimes buy fresh honey straight from the beekeeper. After moving into the nursing home, those weekend outings dwindled, then stopped altogether, and I realized something. If you're not careful, nursing home life can become a bubble, cutting you off from the rest of the world. Problem: inside these walls, everything is orchestrated: your meals, your activities, your social circles. The outside world doesn't revolve around bingo hour or physical therapy sessions. So it's easy to wake up one morning and realize you haven't set foot in a grocery store in months. You haven't visited the park you used to love or spent a day with your grandchildren at the zoo. I used to drive, but now I rely on facility transportation. Often outings are for medical appointments rather than leisure. Consequence: this disconnect can make you feel like you're living in a different universe, one that's smaller, with fewer surprises. You might lose the sense of wonder you once had. News of local events or family milestones arrives secondhand or too late for you to actually participate. When friends or family ask you to join them for something spontaneous, you might have to say no because it conflicts with staff schedules or you need an approved escort. Over time, you start to feel as though the world out there has moved on without you, and you've become an afterthought. Warning: if you're considering this environment, think carefully about how you'll stay connected. Ask about transportation options. Does the nursing home encourage external outings, or are they mostly focused on in-house activities? Staying connected isn't just about entertainment, it's also about maintaining your sense of identity. Whether you love going to church every Sunday or browsing the local library, make sure you won't lose the ability to do those things easily. So tell me, who among you is most worried about losing touch with the outside world if you choose a nursing home? Comment 4 if this concern resonates with you, and remember, your engagement helps this channel grow, so don't forget to hit like and subscribe. More importantly, it helps us support each other through these honest discussions. Next, let's explore an aspect that hits on our personal pride: the silent heartbreak of minimal privacy and dignity. Regret 5. Sacrificing privacy and dignity. When I was younger, privacy was something I took for granted. My home was my fortress. If I wanted to lock the door, walk around in my bathrobe, or lie on the couch in my pajamas watching the game, I did it. No questions asked. Dignity is a close companion to privacy. They go hand in hand. In a nursing home, however, privacy becomes a luxury that's often compromised. And with it, a piece of your dignity can slip away. Problem: while staff and caregivers do their best, the reality is you're living in a communal setting. People knock on your door frequently: nurses checking vitals, aides delivering meals, housekeeping staff tidying up. Sometimes they come in at inconvenient times. Even if they knock, you might be in a position where you can't quickly respond. Worse, if you have a roommate, you may lose control over when the lights go off or how warm the room is. Consequence: over time, this constant lack of privacy can erode your sense of self. You start feeling like you're in a hospital ward, not a home. Simple acts that once gave you pride, like dressing yourself or taking a shower independently, may now require assistance. While help is often necessary, it can be humiliating to rely on someone else for those basic tasks, especially when it comes to personal hygiene. I've seen proud veterans, people who once led entire departments at their workplaces, reduced to embarrassment because they needed help to use the restroom. A good friend, Sam, confided in me that each time he presses the call button for assistance, a small part of his dignity slips away. He knows it's part of aging, but it still stings. Warning: the question isn't whether you might need help someday. We all do. The real question is whether you're mentally prepared for the trade-offs. If you decide on a nursing home, research how the staff handles privacy. Do residents have locks on their doors? Are there private bathrooms or shared ones? What's the protocol for entering a resident's room? How flexible are they about daily routines like bathing and dressing? If regret 5 hits home for you, comment with the number 5. This can be a tough topic, but acknowledging it is the first step toward handling it better. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the rest of these regrets. Now let's move on to a regret that might surprise you: the emotional toll of watching friends pass away, one after another, in such close quarters. Regret 6. Facing the constant reminder of mortality. I've lost friends throughout my life, neighbors, co-workers, even my dear wife. But living in a nursing home brings a new weight to these losses. Why? Because death here is not a rare event, it's a part of the environment. One week you're chatting with Mrs. Johnson at dinner, the next you hear she's been moved to hospice, or worse. She's passed away without a proper goodbye. You live surrounded by folks who, like you, are in the sunset years, and every day can be a stark reminder that time is finite. Problem: people often underestimate the psychological toll of this setting. You see wheelchairs lined up in the hallway, oxygen tanks, and frail residents whose minds are fading. When someone passes, you might notice their room emptied quickly and readied for the next occupant. It can feel jarring, like life is rushing you along, not allowing you to mourn. Even worse, you start to dread forming close bonds because you fear the heartbreak that's almost inevitable. Consequence: this atmosphere can lead to constant anxiety. Every ache or cough might make you think, "Am I next?" And watching those around you suffer can deepen feelings of helplessness. Some residents retreat into themselves, refusing to make friends because they can't handle more loss. Others fall into depression when the buddy they relied on is suddenly gone. I still remember the day my friend Robert passed. We shared stories about our grandchildren the night before. The next morning his bed was empty, no chance for a final farewell. That moment shook me to the core. Warning: if you or a loved one is considering a nursing home, recognize that death and decline are more visible here. It's not something to avoid talking about, but be prepared for how it can affect your emotional well-being. Some places offer grief counseling or spiritual support, which can help. Make sure to find out if the facility acknowledges bereavement or offers any resources for coping with the loss of fellow residents. If you feel this regret in your bones, drop a 6 in the comments. Remember to like this video if these insights resonate, and be sure to subscribe for more open discussions about aging. We've arrived at the end of our regrets, but don't go away yet. Here's still more to uncover. Let's move on to our final thoughts, where I'll share 2 philosophical lessons I've gleaned from these experiences and hopefully leave you with a message of hope and choice. Final thoughts: hope, choices, and 2 profound life lessons. You've listened to me detail 6 major regrets about my nursing home experience. By now you might be thinking, "Frank, is it all doom and gloom?" My honest answer: no, it's not. There are real advantages: medical care on site, safety nets if you're prone to falls, social programs to keep your mind active. But these regrets are also real, and my biggest hope is that by sharing them, I can help you or your loved ones make informed decisions. Let me leave you with 2 deep philosophical lessons that have emerged from this journey. 1. The value of connection over comfort. It's not the fancy amenities, the plush lounge chairs, or even the well-balanced meals that truly sustain you in your golden years. It's the people who genuinely care. That sense of connection, the ability to be seen and heard, is priceless. If you choose a nursing home, find one where staff actually listen to your stories, where you can make friends who roll to the cafeteria with you. Or if you decide to stay at home with a caregiver, ensure you still nurture those friendships and family ties. After all, as the old saying goes, home is where the heart is, and that heart beats strongest when it's surrounded by love and understanding. 2. Acceptance without resignation. Getting older means accepting certain limitations. It's a natural part of life, but acceptance doesn't mean giving up all control or hope. You can still be in charge of your decisions, even if you need assistance. Ask questions, request alternatives, and don't be afraid to speak up for what you want. Acceptance is about recognizing reality, while resignation is about surrendering to it without a fight. Always hold on to that spark that says, "I still matter, my choices still matter." These lessons remind me that a nursing home isn't inherently bad. It's a tool, a resource, a place where help is available. However, it's crucial to weigh the trade-offs in independence, privacy, and emotional well-being. Like any major life choice, this one deserves careful consideration. I hope these reflections guide you or someone you care about to a decision that feels right. If you found value in my story, please like, subscribe, and share this video with friends who might need it. And don't forget, if one of these regrets really spoke to your heart, comment below with the corresponding number. Let's keep the conversation going, because no matter our age, we're all still learning how to live life to the fullest. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. A timeless quote that rings true at 82 and beyond. Thank you for spending this time with me. May your path forward be filled with hope, dignity, and loving connections, no matter where you choose to call home.